In the prologue, a merchant starts wailing and complaining about his wife, which he claims can outdo the devil. He says that his wife is the worst possible, malice, is extremely cruel, and calls her a shrew. The pilgrims beg him to tell them more because he knows so much about this matter, and he says he can finally tell of my wife's cursedness. A rich, wise knight, January, lived in Pavia and was single for 60 years, but always satisfied his physical desires for women wherever he pleased. After being a bachelor for 60 years, he decided that he wanted to get married and prayed to the Lord in hopes he would answer his prayers. January highly valued marriage and thought of it as sacred, pure, and a gift from God. He wished that his wife would serve him throughout his last days and be his prize. A cleric, Theophrastus, tells him not to marry because wives aren't good servants and she will just want his land and money when he dies, and that she will be unfaithful. Despite what Theophrastus says, the knight still believes that marriage is what he wants and thinks that woman was created to be man's mate. January goes and tells his friends about his decision. He asks them to go find a woman who is no older than 20 that will serve him, give him a son, and pleasure him so he's not led to cheating on her. As he tells his friends, he realizes they all have different views on marriage. His friend Placebo agreed with him and tells him he should get married to a young girl because it's a sign of a fine spirit. Justinus disagrees and says that he should know who he is going to marry because he will be giving her his property and money, and he should make sure he knows her first. January does not listen to Justinus and wants to get married still. January finds a very young and beautiful girl he wants to marry and tells his friends that they can stop looking for a wife for him. He is worried, though, that because marriage is heavenly, how will he still be able to go to heaven, or would he have to choose between the two? Sarcastically, Justinus responds by saying that his marriage will be more like hell than heaven, so he will be still able to go to heaven. January ignored him and married May, the young girl, and the wedding was watched over by Venus, the goddess of love. Everyone was happy for him except Justinus' squire Damon, who was so in love with May that he becomes sick because Venus hurt him. The gods Pluto and Venus, who are married, were watching over January and May's marriage. Pluto was on January's side and Venus was on May's.
Everyone was happy for their marriage, especially him, because he was enjoying non-consensual sex. The only person upset about the marriage was January's young and handsome squire named Damien, who was so deeply in love with her that he became physically sick. January grew worried about Damien and sent May to help him feel better. While May was helping him, he passes her a love letter. Initially, when May gets this letter, she runs to the bathroom and tears it up and throws it into the toilet. But then after that, she's all over him and reciprocating her love for him. January grew older and loses almost all of his vision, which Damien and May will soon take advantage of. While in the garden, January mysteriously goes blind and makes May hold his hand so that he knows where she is at all times. May created a copy of the key so that he can get into the garden and tells Damien to hide in a tree so that they could be together in secret. Pluto and Proserpina are watching what is happening in the garden. While in the garden, May ironically wants a pear from the tree that she knows that Damien is in. January voluntarily lifts his wife up into the tree and then sits down underneath it. When May got up into the tree with Damien, they had sex right above January's head. Pluto wanted to give January back his sight so that he could see what was going on, but Proserpina didn't like January and she fights for May. While Damien and May were in the tree, Pluto gave January his sight back and he gets angry. Proserpina was mad at Pluto for going against her, so she gives May an excuse so that her husband doesn't kill her or Damien. May says that his sight is just foggy and he isn't seeing things correctly because he doesn't have his vision fully back yet, and January believes her.
The Merchant's Tale is satirized just like every other tale. How it's satirized in this case is the treatment of women is horrible. They are treated as objects and they are to be seen and not heard. Time and time again, January sleeps with May even though May doesn't even want to. January also gets very jealous and possessive of her over the fear that she might cheat on him, even though it is the men that are always unfaithful and yet continuously blame women for that fault, says May. Also, when choosing who to marry, one of January's requirements is for a wife that she satisfies him enough so he will not have to cheat. If he would cheat, he would blame it on the wife that she is not satisfying him enough. Another thing in being satirized in The Merchant's Tale is marriage. January highly values it, which is weird because he obviously does not care. He says it is pure and sacred, as long with his friends even agree with him on this. He talks about how amazing and deep the connection between a man and a wife and how secure they are. He also talks about how his job as a husband should be to listen, respect, and deeply love his wife. How could he deeply love his wife if he married for off her youthfulness and her beauty? He also goes and says love is blind, which is ridiculous because he chose to love based on what she looks like. The Merchant's Tale is making fun of how poorly women were viewed and treated, and how marriage could be a beautiful thing if based on love and not looks and money.